Because as you look at the profile of this shooter, this gunman, the more you realize that he needed an excuse to express his hate. Not even an excuse. He needed something to cover his hate in. And I personally think if you look at there's an article from Gawker that says, and I know Gawker is not currently the best source to use, but according to Gawker, he not only frequented Pulse nightclub, there are other people who were at the Pulse nightclub who said that they have seen him there on multiple occasions, right? But then there's also from Gawker saying that he had a profile on a gay website. Now, I'm going to do my best to have this conversation without being offensive whatsoever, because, you know, I feel like it's a shame that someone cannot be who they are. And people are brought up in religions and brought up in communities and environments that make them hate themselves so much. They hate themselves so much that instead of being in an environment where they can be comfortable with who they are, they begin to hate who they are. And not only do they hate who they are, they hate everyone associated with who they are. I know I'm familiar with this because in the religious right and the Christian community, some of the people who spew the most hate-filled, homophobic messages, they're struggling with accepting their sexual identity themselves. And you've seen this time and time again, plenty of televangelists who have done nothing but vilified the LGBTQ community later on just to find out that they themselves have had homosexual encounters. I don't even know the proper way to categorize this. And so if anything comes out offensive, it's not what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to communicate that thou dost protest too much, that they have been raised in environments that make them hate themselves. And so they hate themselves. And so they express this hate on everyone else. And this appears to be a part of the profile of who this guy was. Not only was he was raised from in a Muslim family. So, yes, we're not absolving Islam. In fact, if anything, it's his upbringing that made him hate himself. So it's not in any attempt to absolve Islam by any means, but it is also the fact that self-hatred is a very, very destructive thing. And the oversimplification that America wants to use in order to up our attacks on ISIS completely whitewashes the nuances of this situation. Even if you just go with the fact that his father corroborates the story, that he was triggered by seeing two men kissing in South Florida while his son was there. And so that self-hatred just exploded because he probably hated himself and didn't want his son to see this type of thing. You see how it just compounds? And so I'm only saying this not in any means to identify and connect with the shooter, absolve the shooter, or absolve Islam. I'm pointing all this out because America is really good at doing one thing: whitewashing and oversimplifying a situation so that we can have our own political ends. And the political ends that are coming from Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, and a lot of other leaders is the pounding of war drums to increase our attacks in the Middle East against ISIS, which I am personally all for destroying ISIS for many reasons. But I also know that the way that we do things in the Middle East actually helps ISIS. We create new terrorists every single day. But in terms of this guy's profile, you know, he was also the thing that drove me the craziest yesterday was the fact that they chose to show him in traditional Islamic garb, but they did not show him for almost half of the morning, half of the day. They did not show him in his NYPD shirts, multiple NYPD shirts. So now you have this entire new layer on top of this guy that they want to reduce down to being he was just an Islamic propagandized and radicalized fighter. On top of that, his ex-wife has come out and said that he was bipolar, that he was very violent, and that he was some days good, some days bad. And so now you have mental illness that plays into this as well. And again, I don't personally give two rats ass about this bastard, right? Somebody probably should have before this happened. That's right? The pre to this whole story is that somebody somehow, some way, his religious community, his family, our mental health facilities, there's so many places that we probably could have intervened, but that's over with now. Now we have the guy who's killed all of these people. And it's not to humanize him. It's to look at us and to say, why do we always oversimplify things for our own political ends? And I know the answer to the question, but we have to stop doing it because there's so many layers to what motivated and triggered and pushed this guy. And if we're not going to at least try to make guns more difficult to get into the hands of people like this, then we better damn well understand the mental complexities of humans, the emotional complexities, the different things that are at play, and to understand the communities that people are growing up in, and they are not free to be themselves, and so they develop this deep-seated self-hatred that can explode at any moment. If we gotta do one or the other. For the love of God, we have to either just make it more difficult to get your hands on weapons that can cause this type of mayhem. We've got to, for the love of God, we got to address everything. And even then, that's not enough. We have to do it on all and above. And I saw someone tweet this out. And I can't remember who it was. I never do, right? That's nothing new. But the point is, this story really crosses so many intersections that it is pitiful for anyone to try to reduce this to being just about gun control or just about Islam. Not only is it pitiful, but it's intentionally whitewashing a community that has been devastated.